The Rare Slot Podcast is part of the Booster Pack Network. For more TCG-related content, visit theboosterpacknetwork.com. Hosting for this show is sponsored by Category 1 Games, the go-to shop for all of your classic TCG needs. Find your favorites or discover something new at category1games.com.
Hello and welcome to Rare Slot. My name is Rands and this is the show on the Booster Pack Network where we can talk all manner of trading card game related topics, whether that's something that's just going on in the trading card game space at the time, whether that's something maybe I want to talk about or perhaps one of the Booster Pack Network colleagues, or perhaps it's something suggested by you guys, the listeners. Now, if you do have something you want to hear spoken about in an episode like this, let us know. You can do that if you're watching on YouTube via the comments, or if you want to check out the description of this episode, regardless of whether you're listening to it or watching the video, you'll find our social media linked and you'll find our email address. So get onto us via those links. Follow us as well if you're going to check out our social media. That always helps. Or send us that email and tell us what you want to hear about on this show. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can just let us know, whatever you think about the show. Or if you want to tell us something, by all means, please do. Now, as for this episode's a good one because we're actually revisiting a topic we've talked about before. And in fact, we're being revisited by a guest who's been featured on the channel before as well. Now, that person is somebody who over the last couple of years has been crafting their own brand and IP via a trading card game primarily. And they're one of the people who found early success in this new wave of crowdfunded trading card games that we've seen released lately. I'm absolutely astonished by their achievements so far, and I love the product that they've been putting out and sharing with their community. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about their origin story, their creative background, their game, and so much more, please check out their original episode we did. That'll fill in so much context for the conversation we're about to have. Again, if you're looking for that, you can find that either elsewhere on this channel or feed, or I'll make it easy for you and link it in the description. Of course, the person I'm talking about is the force of creativity that is Sterling Cartoons. The person who is not only the game designer, the original creator, the art director, publisher, and so much more for the D-SPIRITS card game, but they are also the mastermind behind its now evolving franchise that we're going to talk about a little bit more in this episode. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Before we do, though, join me in welcoming to the show. It is, of course, none other than Sterling. Sterling, how do you do, bud?
Hey, Rands, how you doing? Thank you for having me again.
That's all right. It's great to have you back. I love to check in on what's going on with D-SPIRITS throughout this episode. Over this time, you've been a creator and a leader of an entirely new wave of the way we play trading card games through this crowdfunding platform. And it's something that I just want to know sort of about your experience primarily today. We'll talk about D-SPIRITS, as sort of like a major topic, but and your brand new Kickstarter that I'm very excited about. But I'm really, really interested to see how, it's been like when you've been managing this whole new experience. Like last time I had you on the show, I called you a trading card game triple threat. You're a publisher, you're an illustrator, you're a designer, you do everything, but you're also so much more now. You're the CEO of this company that's creating D-SPIRITS. You're a brand builder, you're a marketer, you're a community liaison. You have to manage your own community as well. Tell me sort of broadly, how do you feel about your experience? Like, how's it going so far? Is it what you expected from being, a trading card game creator and sort of what you're expecting when you first started out on this journey?
That's an excellent question. I want to say it is a lot different than what I expected. I think the trading card game in itself, not just D-SPIRITS, but just having a trading card game does have so many different legs to it to keep it moving. It's something that I have not perfected all the way. It's something that, of course, being new, I am still learning as we continue. But there are a lot of things I'm excited about it. I am excited that, we've had different players and they've come in and like actually enjoy our gameplay. And I don't know. I do think that it is a lot going into it. It's not just like you draw the illustration and then here you go. There's like so many other moving legs to it. So it is a lot different than last year.
Well, especially, since we've come through this new wave, when you embarked on this journey a few years back, it might have just been a little pet project or something like that. But now it's evolved into an entire brand that you have to manage as well. And it's not just the trading card game, which you're right, has different legs as far as, things from organized play, from, actually designing and creating the card sets, to marketing, dealing with retailers, distributors, all sorts of levels and stuff like that. But you've also got to manage the brand as well that you're creating, and bringing in a whole suite of audiences to experience that as well, not just the game itself. So, what do you think? Last time we talked, the game had literally just shipped its Kickstarter. So people were very, very, very early getting cards. I think it was like within the first week of people having cards, and so much has changed since then. Tell me, how have you found sort of the general response to D-Spirits now that it's out in the world, and how have you found the community build around it?
I want to say people really enjoy our games, our cards, our characters. I really want to say that. I think even fast forward after the Kickstarter release, with our recent release of Soul Snatchers, and having the opportunity of like re-envisioning all of our characters that we introduced in the Kickstarter with like new art and everything, I really think people have gained even a more stronger desire and passion for our characters, and I'm really happy about that.
Well, I have to mention, obviously, we mentioned the original Kickstarter product there, but you have this new sort of, base set, 2.0, basically, the Soul Snatchers set. And people who have only seen those original Kickstarter's cards, I need to emphasize that they should go check out this Soul Snatchers set, because you guys really knocked it up to a brand new level. You have so much more dynamic sort of creativity on the cards. There's so much more motion and so much more that's on them. They're so much more visually sort of laid out, interesting. The graphic design has been improved. I love the way that it's been going so far. Now, let's talk about sort of the behind the scenes, away from the community a little bit. We'll get to that a little bit later, but sort of on the behind the scenes sort of side, what do you think has been sort of the biggest point of change or growth since last time we spoke?
I want to say, well, we did a small circuit run of like conventions this year. So this was really our first time bringing these spirits actually to people live in person. And not only that, we had a booth where we allowed people or visitors to come in and sit down and play the game with some of our very experienced detectives that already have like had a lot of experience playing these spirits. So definitely having those moments, having the moments where we had like the actual mascots for the characters there, and seeing people that don't even know anything about these spirits, but just instantly falling in love with the characters, and kids wanting to take pictures, and families trying to understand what was going on. It was very heartwarming, and it really was reaffirming, and it really did show me that, hey, like, even though this is new, people will be honest and let you know if they don't like something. If they don't like something, they're not going to come by. They're not going to play the game. They're not going to stick around. But when we did our in-person events, we really had a full booth pretty much on most days that we attended. So it really was a great experience.
Well, I mean, that speaks to sort of what you were talking about before, with so many more legs. We were talking about, being a brand builder and a marketer and stuff like that. You've created those experiences. You literally have people in mascot costumes. And in fact, actually, D-Spirits, a really proud moment I heard was somebody completely unrelated to your game or anything like that was discussing one of these conventions you mentioned, and made a big point of how impressed they were with the D-Spirits booth, because you go to such lengths to sort of make it a creative and sort of fun space. Like you said, you've got mascots like you would see it like a Disneyland type thing. You've got wall hangs and all your characters everywhere. I have to compliment you on that effort, because if nobody's seen it, look up the pictures of what those D-Spirits booths look like, because if I was going to a convention, that would certainly attract my attention immediately.
I appreciate that. I think outside of everything, which could be a double-edged sword to some degree, but I really am like an entertainer, like at heart. Like, I like to have people like enjoy and have fun. So even in the initial Kickstarter, that was kind of like my vision, that when we would start doing conventions, like, it's more than just like we want to just sell the card game. We want you to come and like actually have like a fun experience and really enjoy yourself.
No, I totally get that. So let's jump back to behind the scenes a little bit. Like last time we spoke, it was sort of like you and some freelance people who were sort of putting things together. You were just sort of developing Soul Searchers. So you had some new artists working on the game and stuff like that. Since then, how has your team grown? Like, how has D-Spirits grown as a company, like from you outward? Like, have you got more people on your team working with you? What's that look like on the behind the scenes now that you're sort of in the process of creating this trading card game?
Yeah, we definitely have grown exponentially. During the Kickstarter, it literally was just me. I actually, drew all the cards. I think it was like 170 something cards, but I drew literally everything. And it was just me. We didn't have like anybody to travel with. I mean, fast forward to now, we have a strong team that we use to travel with when we do our shows. I want to say at least for the last set, we had about maybe 15 to 20 different artists that helped us with that set, and that's something that will continue to grow as we continue to grow. And then we have like people that just work stores, partners, internal things. Of course, I do want to grow more as far as the LGS like space and having like tournaments and things. But for now, that's where we're at as far as our growth, which, like I said, was just little old me, and now we have about maybe upwards of 20 to 30 different people that'll do different things.
Absolutely. And there's so, like I said, again, to speak to the legs of many legs of a trading card game, Joe, the centipede that it is. Tell me a little bit about the design of the cards. Are you still doing all the design work yourself as far as gameplay goes?
Yeah, so basically I still designed the look of the D-Spirits. I still designed the gameplay of the actual cards and everything like that. But now what happens is I'll show the artist basically like a concept or the actual sketch of the D-Spirit, and they'll go ahead and interpret it in, whichever way they want to see it in.
That's awesome. So it gives that, it still feels like it's your creation of the D-Spirit itself, but it gives it so much more diversity and vibrance as far as the image and the new characters that you're introducing go.
That's correct. And then on our last set, we actually had like Start Boy, which is one of our artists that we work with. He actually created his own D-Spirits. So for the first time, we had someone that works with us that created their own characters for us.
And if I'm not mistaken as well, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you've also got a Kickstarter now with another major trading card game artist who's doing similar sort of stuff as well. So I'm so excited to learn a little bit more about that later on. Now, I do want to just jump back to sort of your expectations, because, this is a big mountain that you're climbing, right? Like, there's a ton of things that go onto it. You need a lot of equipment. You need a lot of people to travel with. We've already spoken about how your team's growing and everything like that. But let's talk about, when you were first looking up that mountain way back, the original sort of roadmap that you had in your mind for D-Spirits, to mix metaphors. Where are you on that at the moment? Are you on track with that? Do you feel like you're a little behind? Do you feel like perhaps you're on a completely different highway than you originally anticipated?
I do. I think we're on a little bit of a different highway, and I do just think we have a lot of growing to do. I mean, there's been pockets of successful things we have achieved, like in the last year, but there's other things I want to do. Like, of course, I always talk about how I want to do a show. I definitely want to do a lot more in person, like tournaments and things like that. I do think our player base does needs to grow, a little bit more for that. I mean, unless we just hold like our tournaments at the conventions that we visit, because we have tons of players in our booths there. So there's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of things that we can do to be on an even better track.
Okay, well, let's talk to that. Let's talk about a little bit more. You were sort of one of the first major, crowdfunded trading card games. One of the biggest successes, and perhaps even probably the first one to definitely crack that $100,000 mark. And sure, and I think your Kickstarter was easily over $300,000. Now, what I want to ask you about then is, since that sort of time a couple of years ago or a year or so ago, the independent trading card game world, especially through Kickstarter sort of type platforms, has exploded. There's tons now. There is literally, when we spoke back then, you could probably count them on one hand, and now there's 20, 30, 40. I feel like you go on a Kickstarter every day and there's a new one launching, and some of them to varying degrees of success, of course. But I want to speak to what you were just talking about there, is growth for your game. Tell me about how, with everything exploding out and sort of like more and more options coming to the world, whether that's, more Pokemon like, monster catcher type games, or even different games altogether, how do you keep your current player base and audience focused on D-Spirits and engaged? And as well, how do you continue to grow that audience with this market being completely blown open, a second boom, as some might have dubbed it?
I think that D-Spirits does offer a lot of personality and a lot of unique characteristics from our cast of characters, the actual names of the D-Spirits themselves. The utility of having the separate decks and it not really even taking long to actually even learn the game. And then even no matter how many different cards we introduce, still playing off of that core feature, I think all those things do help. I do think it does work in our favor that our brand also has like a manga, it has a story, it has like, even though we might not have a show on television, we do have like animated shorts and things like that. So people can clearly see like, hey, this is just more than just the card game. And I feel like that even excites them more to even still play because they get to see the same characters they play with in the card game represented in other forms of media.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. As far as growing the brand goes, having those extra sort of sort of those verticals to sort of point to. You mentioned the manga in there. You guys have a fully fleshed out sort of manga book that's now out. I can't wait to read. I haven't checked it out yet. I've watched some reviews and checked out some pages and stuff like that you guys have posted, and it looks as professional and perfect as you could possibly imagine. I really, really direct people to go check that out if they're interested in learning a little bit more about the D-Spirit story. As well, you mentioned the animated shorts as well that you're doing, and keeping these verticals involved, making people love your characters before they even fall in love with your game is so valuable. People obviously, love Pokemon cards, but they love Pokemon cards primarily because they love Pokemon, and I think that you're sort of charming people as well with the sort of the D-Spirit sort of attitudes and stuff like that, and characters that you've sort of brought out since then. So to speak to that sort of marketing, how does D-Spirits then sort of focus its marketing towards sort of non-trading card game audiences? Is that something that you've sort of started exploring?
Oh, definitely. I think that was just the genesis of the whole idea, period. Because that's not common that a lot of games have animation, and I mean some of them do comic books and things like that, but normally they're not going to start pursuing animation or have their characters even represented in that medium. I think going back to things that I loved when I played like different card games, really what got me into them was seeing it represented somewhere else. Like I would see an anime or something, and then that will trickle me down into like playing a card game or a video game of the brand. So I definitely don't think that's anything like to scoff over. It's really powerful, and that is my whole idea. Like as far as when we do start getting like the story that we have in the manga, like in the animated form, where people can like tune in and watch episodic like episodes of it and stuff like that, I do hope that with that they'll actually want to get more into the game and things like that if they normally wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And to speak to your experience, I did the same thing. Like obviously, after Pokemon, every sort of kids franchise that had a cartoon had a trading card game come out almost. Things like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Digimon all had trading card games. And I would get into those shows first and then trickle my way down to the trading card game. And that was basically almost, the genesis of my love for the genre itself, because through those shows and those sort of other sort of franchises, I was able to sort of learn different games. And it's the exact same reason I've gravitated towards D-Spirit. So I'm so excited for that. Now, the last year has also been unique, not only because we've seen a bunch of trading card games come out. Your game has launched in earnest. It's now being sold all over the world and by different publishers up here in Canada, New Zealand, all those sort of places. But there has been a lot of struggles this year. Like this year has been a rough year economically for the world, as far as supply chain issues go, shipping delays, all sorts of stuff. So tell me, as a leader of a game like this that relies on so much of that sort of logistics, how has that impacted D-Spirits? And how have you pivoted to sort of deal with that? Have you had to change any plans?
Definitely so. Even with our last Kickstarter, we had to kind of push it back a little bit further than I thought, initially we would, because we did deal with some just shipping and customs delay. Like the product itself, we faced a delay when we manufactured our original Kickstarter product. But the product for Soul Snatchers, we didn't really face any delays for production. We really just faced more delays when it came time for shipping. I think that luckily we did prove that we could manufacture our products. It wasn't like we were trying to pull a wool over anybody's eyes or head or whatever. So I think with just being transparent, a lot of people did, trust that it was coming, even though it was a little bit delayed. So I don't know. I think that we were able to kind of handle it okay. But I could definitely see like that would just mess anybody up. But it's kind of like the climate that we're in. I don't know how long it'll take for things to kind of get like back to where they're supposed to be. I know COVID pretty much has like everybody's fear of it has kind of like died down somewhat, but we're still suffering so many different production and shipping things still, in regards to it. So we're just trying to manage it the best way that we can.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it's a tricky thing to land, and then obviously with everything going on around us in the world, I can't imagine the trouble and the struggles. And a delay on Kickstarter, that can't be unheard of. So that's no problem there. Obviously, you had made sample product beforehand, and people had been able to experience the cards beforehand, and I think the community was very understanding, especially with everything going on. You guys weren't the only ones with suffering from this sort of stuff. So tell me, nowadays, and you're sort of launching one sort of shortly to Kickstarter, or it is on Kickstarter and it's funded. Congratulations on that. But a new D-Spirits expansion is coming, along with some other stuff as well that we're going to talk about in a second. But tell me nowadays, like sort of you've got the game out there, but what goes into expanding that game? Like what goes into creating a D-Spirits expansion? Like when you're putting a new card set together, what does that process look like for you? Like how do you actually get into sort of get a new set underway?
Well, like I said, since we have done like some little small convention circuit runs, we definitely have collected more players of our game. And I think it's just like not turning a blind ear or blind eye, I forget the saying, but it's like listening to your community. So I'm even though I might not comment every single, like every day, but I'm very active in our Discord. I watch what the players say and their feedback. And I honestly try to like take that in and incorporate that. So as we work on this next expansion set, I've added things to the cards. Like I know people were saying they wanted the typings of the D-Spirits to actually have words on the card. So we've added that. I know they were talking more so about not understanding sometimes when our abilities activate. So I have that on the card now. It's activated when the card is summoned, or it's activated when you give it the command to activate it, and just different things like that. I think also I was listening and just noticing certain types that we were lacking for people who want to build like those type of decks who might be like all water type or all wind type and things like that. So adding in those characters that are kind of like, complete those decks and make them more beefy. So I think it's just honestly just listening. At the end of the day, like you want the players to enjoy what the game is. So it's like you have to like listen to the constructive criticism and just edit and then just make it even better. So that's what I've been working on with the new expansion.
That's awesome, awesome. So just to sort of extrapolate that, you're talking about, when you're putting a set together, when you're sort of starting it out, you're like, all right, I've heard that people want more food. So like, do you sketch out some ideas of food, or do you come up with some ideas for food effects first, like, and then like be like, all right, well, what could this be? Oh, it's going to be, a bag of potato chips or something like that. You've got great characters based on all sorts of different things. So what goes into that? Or do you have characters in mind or in a notebook that you're like, oh, so for this set, I'm going to start using these characters. Tell me about where that comes from.
Well, with this expansion, specifically, I definitely noticed that we were missing like certain types we had an abundance of, and then certain types we didn't. So I definitely thought, okay, like let's introduce some new spirits and fill in those type gaps. So when it comes to actually creating the actual cards themselves, a lot of times I'll create the D spirit, and then when I look at it, I'll base the abilities of the card based off of how the actual character looks. So that's pretty much how I design it. And then also, we're introducing the D evolutions, which are like the evolutions of the D spirits. So just with those cards, it is more so I think about the ability kind of first, then the D spirit. But for the most part, I'll look at it first and then think about the ability.
That's such a cool thing. And let's, you brought it up there. So let's talk about it a little bit. One of the most exciting things about this new Kickstarter set that you've got is it does add a whole new level to D-Spirits before. One that you teased, you never said that, one in these monster sort of catching, taming genre, one of the cliches or, tropes is they evolve. They transform into new, more powerful creatures or different looking creatures or anything like that. And you've added that in. Talk to me about how you've sort of worked that into the story narratively, from like in Pokemon they get bigger because they had certain types of battle experience. How does that work in D-Spirits? And I'd also love to hear how you've worked that into the game mechanically. How does that work in gameplay?
So ours does work a little differently. It's not more so just about leveling up, but it's about when certain conditions are met. So like an example would be like we have a character called Cake Batter, which has like these little I don't know what type of glasses they are, but they're like triangular glasses. And I'm working on an evolution for a catnapper, which is like this little thief cat that steals stuff. So his condition would be like if he steals those glasses and put them on, that's how he evolves into his next form. So it's more like conditional based versus like level based, so to speak.
Well, that's fantastic. And then tell me, I do want to comment on that because that's actually one of my favorite things about in Pokemon. There was also a secret Pokemon that if you leveled it up at nighttime over in this forest, that's when it would transform. I always love those sort of things and wish they did more of that because it's such a surprise. Or it's like a little like it feels like a little bit of inside knowledge when you know how to do it, especially way back in the day before sort of the internet sort of gave us all the answers. Now, let's talk about how that works mechanically in the game. Like, how did you translate that onto the cards themselves and make the gameplay work with that sort of idea in mind?
Yeah, so we have Hatchpree, which is one of the characters that we're showing in the alpha beta Kickstarter. So basically, like even with Hatchpree, if you have it on the field and you have like another type on the field, like it could be a pixie type or a fire type or water type, if Hatchpree gets destroyed while you have another element on the field, then that triggers its actual evolution, and you can summon the thing that you can summon one of the they can it can evolve like into six different forms. So you can summon those to the field based off of what's around it when it gets destroyed.
Right. Okay. And gameplay wise, is that coming out of sort of like you guys have two decks? You guys have got signal side deck, creature deck, and then a third deck, which is sort of like many trading card game people will know about a side deck. Where is that evolution coming from? Do I have to draw it? Is it in one of those other decks? Can I search for it? Tell me about how that works.
So it actually will come out the side deck. So you don't draw the evolutions. Like a lot of a good thing about these spirits is it is very accessible. So you don't really have to worry about always having to draw certain cards. There's a lot of cards in our game that will like trigger the summons. So that's just one of those situations to where it would be in the side deck, and you just more so just have to worry about having that specific character and triggering the evolution versus having that and then having to have the card in your hand as well.
I love that. I love that because one of my obviously there's two different models you could have went with it. Obviously there's that Pokemon model where you've got to shuffle your deck and wait until you draw the evolution and stuff like that, which narratively never made sense to me. Like, what does that mean if I'm sort of waiting to draw it? Is that me waiting for it to evolve or whatnot? Is that me like training for it? I never really got what that meant narratively. The thing I like about D-Spirits, which just sort of borrows a little bit more from that sort of Yu-Gi-Oh model with the extra deck, you can sort of, as long as you've got the components there, you can make it happen, and it makes it feel so much more thematic, right? It doesn't feel like you have to sit around and wait for it. I think that's a really, really good way to sort of embrace that. I can't wait to try my first evolutions, and like you said, you've only previewed sort of two so far, to the best of my knowledge, in the Kickstarter. Well, two different people who evolve, and then a bunch of different evolutions of that hatchery one that you just mentioned there. But I can't wait. Is every D-Spirit going to have an evolution or only certain ones?
Eventually the plan is for them all to have evolutions. I think in the box set, I wasn't initially planning it, but I'll probably include like just a few more just so we can like have a more balanced gameplay. So it's not just like two certain characters wiping out everybody, at least for a while.
Yeah, because obviously with, a bigger form comes greater power, especially through effects and stuff like that. So I'm super excited for that. Now, let's pivot away from sort of the creative side of things and sort of talk about, something you mentioned there before that you were looking to grow. That relationship with retailers and distributors, something that's really important for anybody who's managing a trading card game. Last time you mentioned that you had connected with a bunch of distributors about Kickstarter, your Kickstarter game, and then obviously the subsequent sets like Soul Snatchers and stuff like that. What sort of feedback have you heard from sort of retailers and distributors since the game has launched?
I do think that we do need a stronger, like we don't have like a tournament, like a play system in place. And that's also just because we're just still very new. So that is something that that we've been, hearing feedback from our distributors and stores, and it is something that I really want to do aggressively as we continue to grow.
Now, you did mention in there organized play. You mentioned that, one of the feedback that you'd gotten from retailers is that, they would love D-Spirits to be able to be played in a more competitive sense and have a structure and sort of have some support from, you guys as far as, leagues and tournament play goes. Tell me what plans do you have for that and what are you working on in regards to that?
Yeah, well, we didn't create any how can I say, like prize cards for this Soul Snatcher set because we just didn't have like that embedded with the plans and everything. But I think going forward, we definitely want to have like, promotional things that's in the stores. We want to have like those prize cards so that players coming into the store, when they can compete, they can win something. We definitely want to have some type of bracket to where we can keep track of people's points. I can't like promise any of that overnight, but I know that building up to it, that is something that we would like. But at least just out the gate, we can just start, doing prize cards and things like that for players who, want to come in and play.
That's awesome. And in the meantime, I encourage you guys, if you're interested in D-Spirits, to go check out your local game stores and see who can get it. And maybe just start your own little leagues there on a weekly basis or whatnot. Start playing and jump into the Discord server, share that you're doing that and stuff like that. Spread the word, because I love the creation that Sterling has made here. So back to you, Sterling. Let me just ask you a little bit more about things, because last time we spoke, we were discussing about the future of D-Spirits, and we were talking about how you would release things and what sort of strategies and models you would use when you're bringing out new expansions for the game. Now, you've gone back to Kickstarter for the game at the moment, and there's a great Kickstarter going, but it also has a whole other side of it that we'll talk about later. But moving forward for other expansion sets, for the set after sort of the Kickstarter product that's out at the moment, that's on Kickstarter at the moment, which is alpha and beta, for the sets that follow that, is that going to be something that you're going to find on Kickstarter again, or is that something that's just going to come to distribution directly? Tell me about what your plan is there.
Yeah, not necessarily. I'm not saying that we won't do Kickstarter again. I'm sure that there'll be other times we'll utilize Kickstarter, but not every single set. Like our Soul Snatcher set, we didn't use that with Kickstarter. And then we have a set coming out with eBay that'll be launching sometime early next year. That won't be on Kickstarter. That will be on, eBay's platform. And then whatever set we have, after that, it might be just released, through us directly and not through Kickstarter or anything else.
Okay, cool. And that eBay set is that going to be an exclusive set that can only be gotten through that channel?
For now it is, yes. It is going to be an exclusive set.
Okay, yeah. So obviously people keep an eye out for that, as well as that comes out in the next sort of coming months and years and stuff like that. That should be exciting to see as well. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Now, tell me, let's talk about the community a little bit. Let's talk about how you've built up this community, because there is a, like you said, there's tons of people who come visit and play at conventions and are very active in the Discord. Tell me what it's been like from your perspective, managing like a burgeoning fandom and a community that's grown up around this trading card game dream that you had.
It's not easy, I think. I think, but what I do try to do, I will say at least, is try to listen to what everyone has to say. I never discount someone's opinions. Of course, we can't act on every single thing that someone suggests, but I do always listen and try to take into account like what's best for our collectors, players, fans, and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I can imagine it's, there's a lot of voices out there and everybody's allowed to share their opinion. It's great that you're listening to that feedback. And obviously, pivoting in ways when you do hear things from the community, like, recent experiences and stuff like that have given you, and to your credit as well. So my question then, I guess, is, you spoke to that you do have a lot of people in the community who are doing who are enjoying D-Spirits in different ways. And trading card games are great for that. You can enjoy them purely as a collectible. You can enjoy them as something that, as a game. And then, there's that other nasty word as well, where people will just hoard boxes. Investors, I think they're called. Now, tell me, how do you feel like your community primarily treats D-Spirits? Do you think it's something that people are into to collect, like in a more like what Pokemon is? Do you think it's a bigger game? It sort of seems to walk a line for me. So tell me how you feel about that.
Yeah, well, we definitely do have a lot of collectors, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, because we have people that, see the art, they enjoy the artwork and enjoy the characters for what they are. But like I said, when we were going on our little convention little circuit, we definitely did gain a lot of people that came in and really enjoyed playing the game. So I really want to say we have like a good line of both. We do have a lot of people that collect, but we do have a nice small amount of people that play the game as well for the stage that we're at.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I love the fact that you're going to these sort of trading card game conventions and other conventions all over the place, spreading the word of D-Spirits in that sort of grassroots kind of way, not expecting people to come to you, but, sharing D-Spirits with everyone through a whole bunch of different sort of angles and stuff like that. You're sharing it as a collectible, sharing it as a game as well. I love that. So tell me, at these conventions and stuff like that, obviously, they're actually, we're spoiled nowadays because we have a lot of conventions that are specifically dedicated to trading card games, whether that's Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic or whatever, or even these indie trading card games that you get nowadays. Having been part of this community now that's growing up, these sort of like indie trading card game creators, do you have a chance to sort of meet and greet and sort of exchange ideas with them at these sort of conventions?
I'm trying to, you know what? When I attend the Collecticons, that's usually when I do get to meet the other like TCG games and creators. And it's always so much like, I will say that when I do attend those, the creators genuinely show like so much respect and definitely just how can I say, like fellowship or kinsmanship, or just like we all are, it's not a versus thing, like it's not a competition. Like of course, like even though it's different businesses, we don't have to be like nasty or mean to each other. It's kind of like I'm sorry. It's kind of like we're both creators. We're trying to like do the same thing. So I do like that. Like I've met Zaba from Nostalgic, which is another TCG. Um and then of course Victor. Well, Victor's not a card, not a game creator, but he used to, illustrate for MetaZoo and stuff. So it was awesome. Awesome going to those type of things and meeting different people involved in the TCG universe.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that obviously you guys are connecting and sharing that camaraderie that you sort of mentioned in there. Because obviously what that's going to do is that's going to lead for better products for everybody involved, right? Like not only for you guys creating them, but for us enjoying them as players and enthusiasts for the genre now. Like trading card games are sort of broken out to be their own genre now, especially with all these independent creators coming along. And sort of being more seen as sort of like a collective of games rather than just, the big tent poles that we sort of dealt with over the last few decades. There's more legitimacy to some of these sort of independent games, and I love seeing that. And you mentioned Victor in there. Now, for those who don't know, Victor Larson. He's an amazing artist who started in trading card games with MetaZoo, which is another huge independent trading card game that's come up in the last couple of years. And you mentioned him specifically because he is actually a part of your new Kickstarter, and he's making some great new cards and doing some designs for you. I guess that gives us a great chance to pivot to talking about that Kickstarter. Tell me about your whole new Kickstarter, how Victor is involved, and what it entails, because there's something so exciting about the Kickstarter, because it brings D-SPIRITS to an entirely new dimension, an entirely new different type of game. So tell me all about it.
So the Kickstarter is for a D-SPIRITS video game that we're, hoping and wishing to develop. Alongside that is like the TCG expansion set, which we've talked about. So it kind of goes hand in hand. We're looking to introduce new characters in the D-SPIRITS video game, and some of those characters will be, featured in the expansion set. So where Victor comes to play at, me and Victor, we met about maybe like a year and some months ago. We just always stayed in contact. Like I said, I really enjoyed meeting him, and it just was bound to happen. We're both artists, and we just have a lot of respect for each other, and it just was a no-brainer to have him a part of it and help design the set. So the actual packs, and we might change the name of it a little bit to kind of reflect what's going on, but it's actually a collab pack from me and him together. So I'll be drawing some new D-SPIRITS, he'll be drawing some, but some of the D-SPIRITS he's actually created himself. And then some of them I've created, and we'll be swapping turns. Like he might create one and I draw it, or I create it and he draws it, or he creates an android, or I created android. So it's kind of like a true collaboration pack. So I am really happy about that.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're starting to share this sort of vision and sort of bringing in new talent and new forces and stuff like that to sort of help craft D-SPIRITS. Like we mentioned earlier with the Soul Snatcher set and stuff like that. You've had people sort of help share sort of your vision through D-SPIRITS, and now people are creating them and stuff as well. I love to hear about that. Now, there's a ton of exciting stuff I want to get into about this Kickstarter, because not only are you funding a brand new video game, which is akin to sort of like those classic sort of monster tamer games we all grew up with, Pokemon being a main one, sort of also in that isometric style, that classic like Game Boy sort of feel to it. Unlike sort of nowadays where it's become more of an open world sort of Breath of the Wild type experience in the last few games. I love that, and I also love the fact that you've got alongside of that a trading card game expansion. So tell me about how those two things are related.
Yeah, we're so excited about the game. I'm a huge like RPG fan, and I do love like how games have evolved to where it's like free roam, open space. But I do still enjoy and miss like the old days of like, I don't know, the RPGs, they were linear, right? Like a linear experience. But I guess during the time, it still didn't feel that way. Like it still felt like you still had this world you were exploring, and it still felt a little boundless a little bit. So I'm not sure to the extent of how big we can make the game. It is our very first game, so I don't want to be like unrealistic, you know. But I am excited about just creating an adventure that people can go on and really like enjoy and meet the different characters. So like I said in the game, which we're showing off on the Kickstarter page, we have like Little Cycle, which is like a little bike, and Lessie, which is like a play off the Loch Ness monster, and different things like that. So those are like entirely new characters that will be used for traversal that we haven't introduced in the D-Spirits card game or any of our other media. So I thought it would be good to not only introduce those characters in the game, but then have a new trading card set, which will actually like have those characters a part of the trading card game as well, so people can like enjoy them both, or at least enjoy the card form while we wait for the game to be fully developed.
That's awesome. And obviously, the great thing I think there is as well, you can, you've obviously said how important it is to listen to the community. Once your set comes out, which will be well before the video game, you'll be able to adjust and sort of hear what people think are favorite characters and stuff like that. Which creatures to feature here and there. Now, tell me a little bit more about sort of your vision for the video game. Now, like this Kickstarter is called, it's called Alpha Beta, which is sort of a play on sort of like those dual sort of monster catching RPGs, much like Pokemon does with red, blue, gold, silver. Tell me about what the vision is there. Is there two separate games that are going to be coming out, sort of akin to what we've sort of known from monster catching RPGs in the past?
Yeah, so the vision for it is to have a very alike adventure in both of the games. But one of them is starring Damien, which is our, main protagonist, and then the other one is Atlas, which is our main antagonist. And I want to include some things in the games that are separate that really have to do with the individual characters, like background and story. And then, of course, have different, like maybe you can only catch this type of D-Spirit in this game and that one and that one. But I do want to provide like some story things that are separate, showcasing that are significant to each character, the individuality.
Oh, that's awesome. So it does actually feature a wholly new experience. So unlike, in the Pokemon Red and Blue days, if you've played Red, you've basically played through the story of Blue. Because you're featuring a different lead character, that leads them to different parts throughout their adventure, right?
Yes. So not I can't say like I said, I can't like be unrealistic. I don't know like in depth how much we will lean into those differences, but I do want to provide some differences in the story that will only be in Atlas's story, like the people that he'll meet. Like we have an example. We have a new D-Spirit that resembles the Grim Reaper. His name is Geltai. And so that's a character that Atlas will meet in his story that Damien will see, but won't really have a chance to interact to the length that Atlas does in his story.
That's interesting. I think I did see that mentioned in the Kickstarter, and obviously it also means that there's D-Spirits that are sort of they sort of have a dark form, like an evil, corrupted version of themselves. So that's going to be featured in Atlas's story. I guess my question is, will those sort of creatures also be featured? Will there be some sort of equivalent for the other version of the game or not?
Well, with Damien, I believe that he'll have a lot more, how can I say, more friendly D-Spirits he'll probably encounter. No dark forms there, but like an addition to Damien would be like he travels with Nephil. Atlas does not get to travel with Nephil. And we all know like Nephil is like everyone's favorite. So there's that difference alone, right there between both of them.
I think that's really interesting. I love the fact that, in this new RPG space, you're doing something slightly mechanically different as well. Like, not only are you experiencing different D-Spirits, as we've come to expect from those sort of RPG sort of monster catcher games, but also, you're offering different sort of gameplay experiences as well. And I love that. Now, let's jump back to the card set as well and talking about how synergistic they are. So, when you release this card set, is it going to feature, it's going to feature obviously a lot of the D-Spirits themselves, but is it going to feature sort of characters? Are we going to get a look at the world that you'll be building with this game out through that card set?
That's an interesting idea. I think that now with our illustrations, we incorporate so much background illustration to the character art. That doesn't go without saying. I think you know what, honestly, Rands, with the cards, I always have in mind like where the characters exist. So like if you look in behind, you see Pyron, he's like near a volcano. You see Mono like kicking out boulders and things like that. So it kind of already is really reflective of the world, because I really want to create the game to where like you're gonna find certain D-Spirits in certain areas. Like if you go down a dark alley, that's where you'll find like Catnapper or a Hood Rat or Buttocks, maybe like sitting on the ground eating some trash or something. If you go into the mountains, that's where you might find like Dinosaurs or Beetle Terrors or things like that. People, D-spirits that have to do with like their specific biome, and I don't want them just popping up randomly. I want them to be like when you go to like this certain space, that's the only way you can find this certain D-spirit.
I love that. It builds that world, it builds that sense of adventure and stuff like that, and makes these characters so much more three-dimensional, right? You know, they have their own habitat, they have their own personality. I love that. Now, let's talk about how the card game relates to this video game. Obviously, you know, we talked about thematically just then. We've talked about how, you know, you might be able to tie sort of elements of the cards that you're going to bring out for this alpha beta set to the game that you're hoping to get out. But is there going to be any way for the cards to interact with the game specifically? Like, I mean, I know in early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, you could take the code on the bottom of a card, punch it in, and then get that card in the video game. Is there going to be some sort of synergistic way to go about things? Is there be code cards in the pack? Tell me about that.
I actually would love that, and that is an idea that I definitely thought about. I don't know if we'll be able to incorporate that in these, you know, first two games or not, but it definitely is something eventually somewhere down the line that I would love to incorporate.
It would be so cool. Obviously, you know, like you know, Pokemon has a code card in it, but that's for the card video game. It would be cool to be able to see a D Spirit in, you know, in the card game, be able to bring it to the video game, be like, I want this D Spirit in the video game. And maybe, you know, maybe you don't catch it immediately, maybe it counts as a random encounter, maybe it just tells you where to find it in the game or something like that. That could be such a cool sort of way to sort of engage those two products together. And I can't wait to see, you know, what you end up landing on there. So tell me, like, just for example, you know, obviously a lot of people watch this show who probably aren't too familiar with D Spirits, but perhaps they've got interested over this conversation we've had here. Perhaps they've gone back and checked out our previous episode and learned a lot about sort of what D Spirits is all about. What is exciting in this new D-Spirits Kickstarter you have going for people who have yet to experience D-Spirits?
I would say what's exciting about it is honestly the introduction of the evolutions. I feel like I think up until now, I've heard countless questions of are they gonna evolve? Are they gonna do this? Are they gonna do that? And I feel like now it's like it's here. Like we're showing that the new characters have another form and they can even unlock more power. And I think the characters we've introduced in the Kickstarter, that is something very exciting. I think even with Atlas's story, I think for the most part, D-Spirits is like a very cheerful like brand, like a lot of cute characters. And I think showing off like Geltai, the dark forms, it definitely shows like a edgier or potentially like more dark side that could be involved in the story as well.
Interesting, interesting. Now, just to speak to dark forms, the first D-Spirit set had dark rares, which are dark versions of other characters. Is this the same concept, just being named something different?
So the dark rares were definitely inspired by the dark forms. Of course, the dark forms weren't announced until recently, but they definitely were inspired by that for sure.
Interesting, interesting. I love seeing these little things all come together as you've sort of, you know, created and growing this brand and this IP and the narrative and stuff like that. Again, I can't wait to check out the manga and sort of see the world that you've sort of built up around it. Now, let me ask you this then. Sort of, obviously you've got a Kickstarter which has funded, so congratulations on that. I encourage anybody who is curious, go check it out. Of course, it's going to be linked in the description. You can go see what's on offer there, and as Sterling said, there's a great way to jump in as D-Spirits goes to the next de-evolution of its gameplay and introduces these new characters. So go check that out. But I want to know, you know, if somebody jumps on the D-Spirits Kickstarter and sort of gets their product and is excited for this game that's going to be coming out in the future, tell me what's sort of on the horizon. What can they expect? Obviously, we mentioned the eBay set that's coming out very shortly. Obviously, they can keep an eye out for that. But tell me what sort of 2023 holds for the world of D-Spirits.
So fresh off of the Kickstarter, we definitely want to go into internally developing like our first demo. So I want to say I don't know how many demos we're going to do for sure. I don't want to like be held to that, but I definitely want to do a few if we can, to just kind of like give people like a feel of the game world, how you play the mechanics, listen to feedback from the players, and really take time really developing something that people can really enjoy and share with their friends, and not even think about how much time has passed enjoying the game.
It's really cool to see it evolve, and I hope people do go check it out, because I like I said, I find the characters charming. I absolutely love it, and I from everything I've seen, I love the direction you guys are taking everything in.
Have you played RPG video games yourself?
Oh my God, like when I was growing up, RPGs were my favorite type of video game. Like, I mean, we grew up, I mean, in a relatively smaller era for video games. You know, like I'm sure, you know, you and I are basically about the same age. And, you know, we grew up in the sort of the pixel generation, right? And pixel RPGs like from Final Fantasy to Golden Sun to, you know, Chrono Trigger, all of my favorite games in that time were RPGs. And I absolutely loved the world because it did feel like it was a full open world that you mentioned before. What were some of your favorites outside of the world of the monster catching ones?
Oh, geez, what is my favorite games? You know what? I really enjoyed. Now, this is a little bit later on after the bit games, but I actually enjoyed a lot of like Final Fantasy. I enjoyed a lot of Dragon Quest. Um, I even enjoyed Blue. I think was it Blue Dragon?
Yeah, Blue Dragon.
I enjoyed that. What other RPGs have I played? Kingdom Hearts, but that's an action RPG. That's not really like a point and click, you know. Um, but I would say those. Of course, Monster Rancher. I love Monster Rancher. I did play Digimon as well, like Digimon World. So yeah, I would say those. I really had a good time enjoying those.
Well, I can't wait to see all the inspiration that those games are going to lead to for this game that you're creating for D-Spirits right now. I'm super, super excited. And I like again, I cannot suggest people go check it out and sort of follow along. Join the Kickstarter. You'll get obviously updates on not just the card set that's coming out, but also the game as it goes into development. You'll get to be one of the first people to try out that demo when it comes out eventually. I am so excited for the future of D-Spirits, and I'm so excited about everything that you've crafted so far. Before we go, what else do you want to tell the people about D-Spirits and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely check out the game. I think that of course is going to present a very familiar formula, but we do have a lot of differences in that. With the battle themselves, we have the abilities for characters to block moves, to dodge moves, and evade them and attack. For the whole like overworld, the plan for the D-Spirits is like that they can actually attack you, like they can actually harm your character. So some of them are more hostile, or some of them like Glam Lip might just be like putting some lipstick on when you see her and catch her. So it's very, I think it's very goofy and very fun. I think if people are looking for like a familiar experience but something new as well, then just check it out. Check it out. You won't be disappointed, and you can get cards of some of our new characters and evolutions as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I definitely, like I said, I recommend everyone go check it out, and I can't wait to try that game myself. At the moment, I'm correct in assuming that the platform that you're going to launch on is going to be Steam.
Yeah, it'll be Steam first. Of course, we definitely, want to do like a multi console like platform release. But I think the main thing is just making sure that the game is like together and functional. And then once that's handled, then we can, focus on having it on consoles and stuff like that.
Well, I would love to see it. And obviously nowadays things like Steam have Steam Deck, and obviously independent sort of smaller video games are available on sort of Switch Shop and all that sort of stuff. It's a great time, whether you're an independent TCG creator or an independent video game creator, or in your case both, to be able to share your vision and your dream with people. So before we get out of here, I sort of want to bring it back to the theme that we really started about when we started talking about this episode. If you were to sort of sum up your time so far as like a leader of a trading card game, a leader of a new brand that you've created, and sort of this world that you've created, if you were to sort of sum that up in just a few sentences, maybe a couple of paragraphs, and sort of send that message out, to yourself in the future or whatever, put it in a time capsule, sum it up, and sort of express yourself to your future self, how would you sum that up?
I would tell my future self to not give up, stay consistent, stay strong, keep your eye on your goals, listen to your community, try to make as many people happy as you can, bring light and love. Continue bringing light and love to families and a new generation, and just show people a good time. Just show people a good time, and most importantly, don't forget to have fun and love what you're doing.
Well, I love that. I love that because D-Spirits encapsulates all of that in its own essence. You said light and love and fun, and all three of those words I would easily use to describe D-Spirits in and of itself. Like, I've always loved the characters, and that's what made me fall in love with it at first, more so than any of these other sort of ones that I've seen come out sort of in the same sort of vein in the recent years. So again, thank you so much for obviously putting that at the forefront of your brand, and fun at the forefront of your brand as well. And I hope everybody goes checks out D-Spirits. Like I said, it's a personal favorite of mine from this new generation of indie Kickstarters and TCGs, and I can't wait until it grows into a video game and so much more as well.
Thank you so much, Rands.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me, Sterling. It has been a fantastic time, and we'll check back in at some other point in the future, perhaps when the next de-evolution of the card game comes along.
Yes, definitely. You know what? I want to come back on because I want us to talk about the manga, and we have to talk about the cards and see what you actually think about the new ones coming out.
We didn't even mention the manga much. I can't wait to see that one as well. So again, goodbye from me. Goodbye from you, Sterling.
Yep. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for supporting and tuning in.
Thank you so much. All right, that has been it for us on this episode of the Rare Slot. Remember, go check the links in the description because we'll have not only the Discord server for D-SPIRITS, but we'll also have the new Kickstarter that you can still get on for the next couple of weeks. So don't delay. Check that out. There's going to be a couple of bonus things coming up to that as well in the coming weeks, and also everything else D-SPIRITS, the website, and where you can find community and stuff like that. I absolutely love the game, obviously, and I love the spirit of it. So again, go check it out. Now, that's it for me. Thank you so much, and until next time, remember, keep shuffling.